Now, WJZ's Purple Playbook brought to you by M&T Bank.
I didn't have to worry about whether you were going to land on your feet because I think either your toes or your heels are already touching, and you're going to become the most sought-after coach in years.
Well, Steve Bisciotti called it. John Harbaugh will be the first head coach hired during this cycle. This is Purple Playbook. I'm Alex Glaze, joined as always by two-time Super Bowl champion Torrey Smith. And Torrey, a big hire in the Big Apple.
Absolutely, and as expected, everyone knew that Coach Harbaugh would be the first guy to go. Now, did we think New York would be the first spot? No, but it was definitely one of the top two options in my opinion. One, Mr. Bisciotti talked about it a little bit, which we will talk about later on, that Coach Harbaugh is a little bit older. He's not going to wait to draft a quarterback and figure out what's going on. He's trying to go now, and they have a great young quarterback there in Jackson Dart. If his health holds up, he has an opportunity to be one of the next big guys. And also, this is something that I haven't heard Harbaugh speak on, and he probably will not. Coach Harbaugh is a guy that has a media future. And if you go and you plant your flag in that New York area, that's something that will carry you far beyond the game. And Coach Harbaugh has the ability to speak. He has the ability to talk ball. And, that's something that beyond football, he's going to be in a great place.
Certainly an interesting move, and it felt like the Giants were the move all along. This is a franchise that fired Brian Daboll back in November, and Daboll, the sixth coach to lead the Giants, we're talking about since their last Super Bowl back in 2011. This is a franchise that has a history, or I should say a culture more, of losing for more than a decade, but that culture instantly changes with the hiring of John Harbaugh. Harbaugh brings that instant credibility and consistency and leadership to New York. One of my friends who's a Giants fan actually texted me that he's happy about the stability and structure that Harbs is bringing to New York. Clearly a new day for the New York Giants, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they're able to do when we're talking about that young core. We're talking about Jackson Dart, Malik Neighbors, Cam Scadaboo. A lot of excitement, a lot of young talent with the Giants.
Absolutely, and again, it's all about getting it done. I love that your friend noticed Harbaugh's leadership skills, because there are people here in Baltimore that completely forgot that was probably one of the things that he was best at. But again, that's not to go backwards. A change was made, and you understand completely why it was done. However, Coach Harbaugh is a guy that is in a good spot to be able to compete early. Now, I'll go ahead and tell you this. Philadelphia is still very much the best team in that division. You know the Cowboys are always capable. We all know they also figure out a way to stink it up every single year when it matters the most, but they're still a solid organization. And then you go and you look at it's the Giants, and you can fit in, right? Oftentimes, and just a few years ago with the Commanders, there were multiple teams from that division that made it into the playoffs, similar to the AFC North when the Bengals are rolling, the Steelers are rolling, and the Baltimore Ravens are being who they are. So it's a spot where, yes, it's competitive, but he'll be in position early that he will stand a chance at getting to the playoffs soon.
It's an interesting move because John is also known as a CEO coach, right? And some people knock him for that. Some people, see the value in what he's bringing to the table. But now the question for me is, who is he going to surround himself with? And there are reports out there that Todd Monken is someone that is going to follow John to New York. Monken obviously had a lot of success here as the Ravens offensive coordinator. How do you see a Todd Monken offense working in New York when we're talking about, you don't have Lamar Jackson anymore. You're going to Jackson Dart, a young guy who's not a two-time MVP, not a future Hall of Famer as of right now. And that young talent that they have in New York, just how do you view that working for Todd Monken?
I think Todd Monken has the ability to go out and put up points, regardless of what people feel or think. The Baltimore Ravens offense has been one of the best offenses in football since he's been there, right? And really since Lamar Jackson has been there, but for sure since Todd Monken has been there. He just didn't commit to the run enough. And that's the only thing you'll say. If you look at the numbers, you'll say, hey, this is still one of the best offenses in football either way. Right, but for him to go up there, I think he'll be fine. He has the ability to communicate with his quarterbacks very well. I had the opportunity, Coach Harbaugh let me actually shadow their practice for a day or two, and I was able to watch him lead meetings. He has that personality. He has the knowledge and the ability to connect with the guys. So I think he'll put himself in a spot where, with the young quarterback who's searching for knowledge and wanting to plant his flag in this league, it's a great time to get there. And therefore, there aren't many habits that he's going to have to really break. You have a young guy that's going to have to buy into what he really wants, and he has the ability to make reads simple for him as he moves forward in this offense.
Absolutely. Well, now the first domino of this cycle has fallen, and now the question is, who will be next? There are 8 other head coaching jobs to be filled, and the Ravens owner Steve Bisciotti feels like his job is the best, as he should. Earlier this week, general manager Eric DeCosta explained what qualities he's looking for in the franchise's next head coach.
We want leaders. We want the best leader we can find. We want somebody who's going to hold the players accountable. We want somebody who's an expert in X's and O's. We want somebody who the players can relate to, but also somebody that's going to be firm and continue the culture that we've built, which we think is important.
All right, well, we heard straight from Eric DeCosta's mouth what he's looking for. We put together a couple of lists with those words in mind. Our top 5 candidates for this Ravens opening. Torrey, let's start with your list here. Brian Flores at the top, followed by Robert Saleh, Anthony Weaver, former Raven, on there as well, as is Jim Schwartz and Clint Kubiak. But Brian Flores at the top of your list. As of right now, only the Ravens and Steelers are the only 2 teams to request him for head coaching interviews. What is it that you see in Brian Flores that fits in Baltimore?
Well, he's a guy that falls along the lines of, if you go and listen to Steve Bisciotti's full interview on the Ravens website, you'll see that he mentioned that he doesn't want to put someone's record in the past against them. You also heard what Eric DeCosta just said. He wants a guy that is firm but relatable, right? A guy that's going to hold his guys accountable. Well, when you look at Brian Flores, he is a guy that's a fiery leader that did an excellent job in Miami with what he had. Right? Honestly, he probably got fired because he refused to tank, right? And that's something that sometimes people, I guess, they have to try to play those games. But I think for him, he's a guy that the players respect, and they said he won a master of X's and O's. He's one of the best defensive coordinators in the league. And when you talk about this Baltimore Ravens franchise, you're talking about a franchise that its DNA is built in football. Even though Lamar Jackson has completely transformed the way people view offense with the Baltimore Ravens, the DNA is still in the defensive side of the ball. And so that's why the top 4 guys on my list are all defensive coordinators, but they're also strong leaders. And that's what it's going to take to get get them to the next level, because you can always hire a great offensive coordinator, but finding the right leader at the top is what matters the most.
I agree, and I'm going to put up my list. We're very similar with at least our top 3 guys, right? The order might change around a little bit, but very similar line of thinking. Robert Saleh at the top of my list, Anthony Weaver behind him, Flores at 3, Jesse Minter at 4. He wasn't on your list. It's very interesting. And then Mike McDaniel coming in at 5. And just for a lot of the reasons you explained for liking Brian Flores, I like Robert Saleh because when I'm listening to Steve Bisciotti and Eric DeCosta describe the things they're looking for, the leader, the master of X's and O's, a past head coach whose past is not going to be held against him because of their situation, everything was just pointing to Robert Saleh for me. But most importantly, and probably most appealing to me, is just who Saleh could also bring with him to Baltimore. And that's a factor that Eric DeCosta spoke about as well when we're talking about the past relationship in San Francisco with Robert Saleh and Mike McDaniel. Is there a situation where Mike McDaniel comes here, that elite offensive mind, and comes to Baltimore? Because reportedly he has said that he would rather go and take an elite job as an offensive coordinator as opposed to not a great situation as a head coach.
Listen, if that's a package deal that could happen, sign me up today, because that would be an ideal situation. I do think Robert Saleh, again, he's a guy that he was with the Jets, okay?
Zach Wilson was his quarterback.
If you were the head coach of the New York Jets, you dealt with struggles. And the primary reason why was that there was no franchise quarterback. There's a trend amongst all the coaches in the league and all these coaches that kind of got the boot. Right? Not many of them have a guy at the quarterback position that is the future. And like the number one, look at the playoffs. The guys that are still in it have quarterbacks that play at an extremely high level. It's just simply tough to win without it. So when you talk about what Saleh's able to bring to the table, you're talking about a guy that's a great leader, that's well respected. He checks all those boxes. But if he's hired, you would have people on the back end and say, oh man, he didn't do a good job with the Jets. Well, he did a decent job for a little while, especially considering what he had. And the ability, again, if you have the ability to lead and you have better personnel, you're going to be more successful. That's no different than any business out here. I can go and franchise me a fast food restaurant. If I have me some employees that are locked in, that really get it, that have the talent, we are going to perform at a high level. And that's what was missing for him when he was in New York. The talent just simply wasn't there.
No question, an elite defensive mind, especially when you see what he's doing in San Francisco. A lot to debate when we're talking about the future of the Ravens, but we have to take a quick break. When we come back, Steve Bisciotti talks about Lamar Jackson's involvement in this process and how much say Jackson will have when it's time to make a decision. You're watching Purple Playbook.
This is the Purple Playbook, brought to you by M&T Bank. The winning prognosis, brought to you by LifeBridge Health. Care bravely.
And welcome back to Purple Playbook. As the Ravens' search for John Harbaugh's successor continues, there are questions about how much say Lamar Jackson will have in who the Ravens' next head coach will be. Steve Bisciotti cleared things up earlier this week.
A lot of say, but he has no power. I have the power. They have opinions, and I want them all. I care about my players very much, but I can't give them power.
A blunt answer from Steve Bisciotti, but throughout the presser, he did reiterate how much he wants Lamar Jackson to be involved in this process. How important do you think it is for Lamar to be involved?
I think if you have the opportunity to be involved, you have to. Right? When it comes to who your next coach is going to be, you would like to think about this. If anyone could pick their boss or have an opportunity to influence your employee to pick their boss, you would be a fool not to, because what if there's a guy whose personality you don't think you mesh with very well? I'll always say this. Football is football, right? No matter what happens, no matter who they hire, X's and O's are going to be solid across the board. But will there be a guy that you're going to be able to respect? And that's what I think the difference is going to be. If you go and you read between the lines of what's been said, of wanting a leader that is strong but relatable, that's not saying Harbaugh wasn't completely relatable. What that tells me is similar to what happened in Pittsburgh. Over 18 years, things change, right? 18, 19 years, things change. And you need someone that's going to be able to come in here, be firm, and not let the little things slide. And I think that's what's going to be the difference. So for Lamar, if he has the opportunity to know who he's going to mess with for the next few years and help him hold up that trophy that he's been working his entire career for, you'd be a fool not to come up here and sit in those meetings.
I was sitting in that press conference, and every time Lamar Jackson got brought up when it comes to being involved in this process, I almost took Steve Bisciotti and Eric DeCosta's responses to those questions as challenges to Lamar. You know, this is a guy that reportedly doesn't do a whole lot or isn't very involved in the offseason, just kind of shows up when he wants to and things like that, reportedly. But it sounded like a challenge to me of like, if you're serious, we want you to be here, we want you to be a pillar of this franchise, but you have to show us that you want to be here as well. Also, when Steve's asked about his contract extension, which we'll get to in a little bit as well, you know, it didn't sound like there's urgency, but also he's not going to cower to anything. It's like, if this isn't the way it's going to go, or you think it's going to go a different way, it's going to go my way. So I think it almost took it as like a challenge to Lamar to show up if he wants to be a part of this.
I think, again, how many people are given that opportunity, right? You heard rumors about...
He said, hop on my plane, you know?
Right,
like,
I jump on it in a heartbeat, right? You talk about Jackson Dart. He had the opportunity to get a phone call from his team and his guys are there to see, like, hey, what do you think about these guys, right? Lamar has a chance to be in on the meetings. I'm not sure how often that's even happened, right? And to publicly have that door open to you, to me, for sure, that sounds like that's a challenge to, hey, how much do you really care about who is next, right? And like you said, Mr. Bisciotti is one of the most easygoing people you've ever met in your life. Well, when it comes time to come down to business and he has to leave Florida, he's dead serious when he says that. If he has to be there, he expects you to be there if you really care that much. So I think Lamar will be there because he does care about winning. And if you have the opportunity, again, to pick your partner for the next however many years, you have to.
And, of course, the future of Lamar Jackson, another question here in Baltimore. His contract is looming, an extension we thought potentially could get done last year. That didn't end up being the case, but now they're in a situation because of the salary cap situation and the way things are structured. They have to get a deal done now. And Mr. Bisciotti, or Steve Bisciotti, I should say, was also very direct when he said that he wants this to be done before free agency, which is the beginning of March.
Yeah, it'll get done. I mean, we sit here all the time talking about hypotheticals, and he said, yeah, it'll be similar in structure, a.k.a. it ain't going to be 100% guaranteed. However, it's going to make him the number one highest paid player in the league, and everyone knows that. You play with the salary cap. That's fake in a lot of ways. However, you kick that can down the road, and you're able to get flexibility. So for Lamar, he wants to win. He also wants to get paid. He has the opportunity to do both in the next month or so here. So it'll get done, and it'll allow them to bring in guys to help him go out and win a Super Bowl.
Do you think a deal gets done
1,000%.
before free agency on that timeline?
1,000%, because if it's not done, then it doesn't allow them to get the help that Lamar needs. So as a player, you for sure want to get paid. You're telling me, hey, you already know it has to be better than it has to be the highest paid contract in the history of the league. You know that already. And you want to get that done, and you already know that, hey, let's talk. We can get that done, and you can bring in, some linemen for me, and you can go get me another weapon in the passing game, and you can go get us some pass rushes. Come on. We ain't even got to talk like this. Let's get this done,
Certainly something to keep an eye on over the next couple of weeks and months. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we are playing something or nothing a lot going on around the league, especially in the AFC North. We're going to break it all down when Purple Playbook continues.
This is the Purple Playbook, brought to you by M&T Bank. The Bottom Line, brought to you by M&T Bank.
And welcome back to Purple Playbook. It's time for something or nothing. I'm going to throw out a topic to Torrey. And Torrey, you tell me if it's something or nothing. All right, of course, the big news around the league this week, Mike Tomlin stepping down after 19 seasons in Pittsburgh. He put out a statement, thanked fans and Pittsburgh for all the memories. But if you go back to John Harbaugh's statement that he put out, he didn't thank Baltimore or the fans. That's something or nothing.
I think I'd say it's nothing to it, because he does care about the people. I think he might have alluded to it slightly. It wasn't as great of a statement as Coach Tomlin, but we got to be honest here. The fans were talking so much trash, it's hard to want to say thank you to him. So I get a little bit of pettiness in that. That might be a better message, as he goes forward and truly commits to the next stage. However, I say there's nothing to it, because, again, this is a place that for as long as he lives, it has to be a place that he calls home.
You know John Harbaugh way better than I do. He doesn't cross me as a guy that does anything by accident. It seemed like it was intentional to leave out a couple of things. But all right, we'll move on. As we move on now to the AFC North, which is going to have 3 teams with new head coaches in 2026. The Ravens and Steelers obviously looking to replace their guys, and the Browns also searching for their next head coach. This AFC North shakeup, I mean, is that something or nothing?
Looks to me like a whole bunch of nothing as well. Like, guys are going to, when you don't perform, changes happen. And if you would have asked me before the season, when the Baltimore Ravens had the greatest roster in the history of the Ravens, and then you had the Pittsburgh Steelers who had Aaron Rodgers, that we'd be talking about these two teams not being in the playoffs and both head coaches who are legends and Hall of Famers being kicked out, I would have said absolutely not. However, that's just how the game goes. And I think right now, these owners and teams, like, they want to win now. And there has been a couple of times where people have been able to see change happen. You think about the Philadelphia Eagles, right? They were able to get one within the first 5 years of changing their coach. And so it's a big deal for it to happen for these coaches. But at the end of the day, I still think it's just the cost of doing business. So to me, it's nothing.
Okay. And as we look at that other opening in the AFC North, the Browns requested to interview Grant Udinski, 30-year-old Jaguars offensive coordinator at Towson grad, played football at Towson, so local ties there. But interviewing a new kid on the block for their head coaching jobs, that's something or nothing. I mean, we know these wonder kids, everyone tries to find the next guy.
Everyone's trying to find the next McVay. So I'm going to say there's something to it, because I'm hyped for a guy that has local ties. Otherwise, having a 30-year-old head coach, we talk about everything that Mr. Bisciotti and Eric DeCosta were talking about in their meeting about wanting a strong leader that's relatable. It's kind of hard to be that guy if you have, 15% of your team 20% of your team is older than you are. But I think he's a guy that you see star power all over him. Give him a few more years, he'll probably be ready. But it seems like everyone is looking for that next young thing. And honestly, I hate to be that guy, because
You sound like an old.
It
angry,
sounds like
bitter man.
it sounds like an old guy because you watch guys get skipped over.
Sure.
You watch cycles change. There are guys now who are coordinators in this league who were some of the top head coaching candidates within the last 10 years, and you never hear about them again. And now there's going to be some young guys like, dang, man, it makes me think, shoot, maybe I should have started coaching. I might have had an opportunity to go ahead and try to rise up the ranks, right? Being that they're trusting guys. But I think that goes to show what the times are. Like, people are more comfortable feeling like you don't have that age doesn't mean maturity. And the ability to lead, they aren't necessarily knocking guys for their age because you've seen guys go out here and win Super Bowls at young ages. So I'm excited for him and his future, but I don't think anything's going to move this year.
Even if he doesn't move, just getting that interview.
Oh, my gosh, that's all you need.
Big opportunity. So
your name's out there.
Next up, yeah. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we are going to take a look at the divisional round matchups and a couple of first-year head coaches that are making a big splash in year one. You're watching Purple Playbook.
This is the Purple Playbook, brought to you by M&T Bank. Now, WJZ's Purple Playbook, brought to you by M&T Bank.
And welcome back to Purple Playbook as we get ready to wrap the show and look forward to Sunday's divisional round matchups. Two first-year head coaches, Mike Vrabel, obviously, in his first year with the Patriots, and then Ben Johnson in his first year with the Bears. So Steve Bisciotti talking about getting the Ravens back on track, back in the playoffs, and pushing for that Super Bowl. It's possible with a first-year guy.
It's definitely possible. And for those two guys, no one expected their teams to even sniff the playoffs. So shout out to them for the job that they were able to get done. But it goes to show you have capable talent, guys that go out there and get the most out of their players, and GMs that bring in the players they need to get over the hump. Great things can happen.
Absolutely. All right, well, that's going to do it for this week's Purple Playbook. For two-time Super Bowl champion Torrey Smith, I'm Alex Glaze. We do this show every week. See you back here next week.